doing well. You know, we often talk with leaders, not here at Bloomberg Live, but some leaders who talk about doing good, and then there are those who actually follow through and do it. And this is a true example of someone who is changing the world and thinking about the community at large and thinking about sustainable on so many different levels. So Hamdi, welcome, and thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you.
And we're going to talk about that in a moment, but we are Bloomberg. We play a drinking game. Like every time we say the Fed, it's like a shot of something, usually water because we're at work. Business environment. How do you think about it right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange times. It's so good to be here with you, and I'm honored. It's a strange times. You know, I listen to Bloomberg and watch all the newses and all that places, and then there's the reality on the floor.
Right.
There's the reality on the factory floor and stores and people's behavior. I have a very optimistic view. I think we have passed the time that we were really worried about things can get really, really bad, especially on that supply chain issue times. Yeah. I was very worried. I think that's kind of milding. That's kind of coming down to the right place. I was very worried about this price hike was going to go really high, especially on food.
Right.
And the reality of people affording food, being able to have an access to food, especially children, it was coming to a place how much more this price is going to go up. And in there, I became a little loud, and I said, well, the companies are doing a little bit more than what the inflation is asking for. Is this an opportunistic time that people are taking advantage of?
Do you think it was?
It was a little bit there.
Yeah.
It was a little bit there. And I think it came down now, and it's just leveled, and I think it will find a place. But you saw some capitalistic, approach on the places like, oh, this is our time to be able to bring our prices to a place where we can have the margins and all that kind of stuff. There's that attitude. In the long run, that doesn't work. I think we were the first one ever that we went to our retail partners and we said, in certain categories that we have, we're going to reduce the price. And they were like shocked. And basically, well, you're still growing. There is no sign of anything slowing down. Why would you do that? I asked the team to do it because we didn't see the prices are going up, and we might have gone a little bit further up, and we brought it down. So that kind of milded it. I'm a little bit optimistic on that dimension. Look, the world is an unpredictable place, and what happens in Russia has an effect on the farmers in Idaho. And outside of that, I don't see anything that is going to be dramatically negative in the U.S. market. And from Chobani's perspective, I don't see it.
I love that idea of cutting prices. It feels very anti to what a lot of corporate cultures might do, and just say, let's ride this for a little bit. You have written or thought about kind of the anti-CEO playbook. What is it that, and I want to kind of to roll into your thoughts about creating a sustainable business that impacts so many and so much. What is it that you don't like about a lot of leaders that are out there?
I should be the last person in the field of business. Like I'm growing up.
But you are.
I am. So I did not have any visibility on a field of business. Like I did not study business. I never worked anywhere. I never knew anyone who started business. I had not been to any corporate places, even now, very limited. So when I started Chobani in upstate New York, so I am clueless how to start or grow a business.
But there's farming in your family.
There's farming. There's definitely. There is this tradition. There's this tradition. But when I grow up, I found myself very distant from business from the perspective of how a simple shepherd's son in a village sees the rich people and business community. What does that mean to me? And I don't see any differences. And as someone who lives in upstate New York, who lives in Idaho, or a little bit outside of the city. And there is this negative view. And negative view is known act of business all along, that someone gets rich on somebody else's back, something is get damaged because somebody needs to be successful, and then there's this created class of people who are maybe separate than the rest of us, right? Yeah. There is this group of people, group of industries that is somehow chosen, that is me talking when I'm 20 years old. And I said, well, how do I get into this field not to become someone grow up hating?
Yeah.
And how do I exercise?
You're a 40-year-old hating
when I was
20-year-old hating your 40-year-old version
so
of you.
That's the dimension.
Yeah.
I'm in this old factory, 4 factory workers. I'm surrounded with community and the farmers. And I started this, and this is growing, and I'm doubting myself every step of the way. But what I said is, A, I don't want to be that guy. The second thing is I don't want to be the company who closed this factory and abandoned the community. And the things that I have seen that they have done there for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. What I found out is if you operate in your true self, how you are in your home, in your community, as a community member or a father or a mother or whoever, business is not distant from anything else like that. You want to do the right thing. You want to do things that you love. You want to do it with the others that participate. And if you apply those simple human conditions into a business in a very dominant way, it becomes a very powerful machine.
Well, you are a believer in sharing the success with your employees, and you did that several years ago, giving your employees ownership within the company,
yeah.
which is just one of the facets of what you do. What does a sustainable business mean to you? And I hear what you're saying, and I love it. And I bet, don't you all love it? Like, it sounds like the way we should run so much. But you're not public yet.
Right.
But often the conversation is, how do you balance doing that? Being a good company, thinking about the community at large, your workers, and then those beyond, making sure people all can have access to nutritious, healthy food, with being a profitable company, to make sure you can maintain that business going forward and keep it going.
This is the key question, and you nailed it.
Is it easy or hard?
It's hard and it's easy. It's easy if you believe, and completely believe, not just on the surface, but you're completely convinced that being conscious of your employees, being conscious of your community, being conscious of the communities that you're serving as your products, or being aware of the environment and humanity all, is really good for business.
Yeah.
If you're convinced that if you operate in that center, then it's extremely easy, because everything that you do for humanity is good for your company. Everything that you do for environment is good for your company. Everything you do for your employees is good for your company. Everything you do, it just gives you another dimension that you will be faster, you will be more profitable.
But does everything you do go, forgive me, black and white, go right to the bottom line?
It doesn't in that moment.
Okay.
But if you have a long-term view, right? You asked me in the early days, you say, Hamdi, how's business? I never had a best year. I say very little sound, because what happens is all those things, accumulations of all those things that you do, come to a surface in a really bad day. If you look at Chobani's performance during the pandemic, during the inflation, post-pandemic, we broke all the records, and we shouldn't be. You can compare Chobani with all the other big CPG companies, 3 times, 4 times, often even more times more performance metrics higher than any other ordinary company. And we are a sizable company. We're getting close to be $2.5 billion sales, and we have dominant category in yogurt, and we're entering the categories like creamers and oat milk. So our resources are completely limited, way limited than compared to other CPGs.
Right.
But our fulfillment rates were almost 98, 97%. It's unheard of during the supply chain problems. Most of our peers were 60s and 70s.
So if you had a different culture and you didn't care so much about your workers, about making sure your food is healthier, reaching more, you think about kids a lot, making sure kids have access, do you think you'd be in the same financial situation today?
No.
Because
well, first of all, I wouldn't be able to operate in there, so I needed to go train.
You couldn't do it.
Like, actually, business training, in my opinion, and I might be talking a little bit, business training is taking us, our natural being, into something that we are not. A traditional business training. Like, if the business, today, if you go to some business schools like Harvard's and some others, and I see some encouraging things that are happening in there. It's coming back to our nature.
Yeah.
Stay human when you are in business, but truly, you don't really have to pretend to be something else or some other styles. I don't think Chobani would have been any successful if it wasn't in that dimension. If you change Chobani to be that company in an environment of public world, we will be failing in every dimension.
So do you get worried about, the stories that have been, plans to go public.
Right.
We've covered it. Is that still the plan? And do you...
Yes.
You can make a headline right now. It's just...
See, reporter is always reporter.
No, but I mean, because
No,
it's
I
a
always...
new dynamic that gets introduced potentially.
The best part of Chobani is we probably built a company that people often don't think about this. We still control 80% of our company, and 20% is a long-term pension fund of nurses and healthcare workers.
Right.
So 100% of this company is free from financial institutions. And we built over $2 billion infrastructures in the company. We've been around for 15 years, and we started with SBA loan.
Right.
And none of us have done this before. And we covered 23% of yogurt market, and we grew over 20% this year, and that's another 20% year before, and we're going to be another one next year. We are innovating like there's nobody else is innovating. But what I'm saying, basically in this thing is, whether I am public or not, I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But this dream can be a public company if I choose to do it, or if people in the company ask me to do it. Which is on the table. I haven't decided yet, but...
Has it moved off the table? Close? No, I'm just kidding.
It just doesn't matter, really. It just applies the same thing.
Is that because consumers care more about that, employers care more about that in terms of what the company stands for?
Yes, ma'am. So we are in a cross point right now in the business community, and I say it as loud as possible. It doesn't matter if you truly believe that this is good for business. You're going to have to be forced to do those things. And you brought into an amazing point here, is your daughters, the young people, energetic, passionate people who have very strong opinion what the world should be like.
Right.
And what should we care when it comes to gender, income inequality, environment, all those things that you're covering here today. Those opinions are very strong. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to change no matter what. And then you have this talented workforce are coming into the companies, are picking the companies and brands to work, is aligned with their mindset. And then you have this consumer is going that direction, is that looking at the cup, looking at the bottle, looking at the products and saying, what company is this? What kind of mindset do they have? What do they truly do? And we're living in this really connected world that you cannot pretend, you cannot lie, you cannot fool anybody. So you have to be truly this. So unless you put your act together now and start making changes in your company, A, good for business, B, tomorrow's consumer is not going to be there unless you make that changes. Tomorrow's talent is not going to be there unless you make changes. So your decision is today is, am I going to be relevant tomorrow, or am I going to be the garbage can?
We're going to get into a talk, because something very relevant to it is how you think about your workforce and who you bring into your workforce. Before I do that, because I feel like this fits with this, is we've all of a sudden this week had a bunch of stories, whether it's Walmart or the maker of Pringles, and they're talking about the impact of those diet drugs, Wegovy, Ozempic, on food purchasing. Walmart is researching data, watching data, and they're noticing different buying patterns. Mm-hmm. The CEO of Pringles and Cheez-Its, I love Cheez-Its. Not Pringles so much. The company is studying it. Do you guys think about things like that? Because you've made no sugar products.
Yeah.
Like does that at all come into it? Again, that's a community, like thinking about health of the community.
Food making in this country is a whole another dimension.
Did you want to say horrendous?
No, whole another dimension.
Oh.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Sorry.
Where do you start? Where do you start? And you have, startups and companies like, passionate founders and entrepreneurs and saying like, I have to make a better soup, I have to make a better yogurt, I have to make a better bar, I have to make this and that. And then scaling those businesses are extremely hard, extremely difficult.
Right.
And what you see is most of them, they don't grow to challenge the category and make a change, a dramatic change. And Chobani we're lucky that we passed those dimensions. So the way that food is being made is exactly the same thing, with hand of 10, 12 large CPG companies, and the way that the food is made is exactly the same thing.
Right.
Right. I entered the creamers category, and
it's competitive.
It's competitive, but you look at two major brands. See, this is the freedom I have. I can talk about anything. You have two major brands.
Being private? Oh, sorry.
Being independent. You have 70% of the creamers business. It's billions, maybe 3, 4, 5 billions. 70% of the creamers that's sold in this country is two major brands, and there's not even a drop of cream in there. 80% of the people think, that purchasing those creamers think, we made all the studies, that they are made from creams. And I can go from category to category to give you an examples how much these big CPG food makers are confusing purposely or misleading purposely or not implementing the good food making practices that people, ordinary people outside of New York City can have an access to those foods. Food can be made extremely better than what it is today out there.
How many of you are going to go home and like look at the containers?
Yeah, take a look at it.
We're all going to do it.
Take a look at it. It looks like a painting, like one of those brands. I don't want to say the name. You can actually put the powder on the air and flame it. It can burn.
You're really going to go home.
It's in
and
YouTube.
check, aren't you?
It's shameful what's going on out there. But again,
and that's with oversight.
they have the reach. Right? I mean, they have the way to supply to Walmart, give the pricing, give the promotions, put it in the ads, and all these commercial things that they can do. And the person, if I'm a teacher, if I'm a factory worker, and I'm going to shop and I have a budget, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. No, it's very hard for people.
It's very hard for people. And when you're looking at all these health challenges, you have diabetes on children, for God's sake, in this country. Where is the responsibility of that CEO of that food maker who says, I can make this better? But no, I'm making 25%, 30%, 50% margins, so make the challenge. And I give one challenge. Every CEO should be feeding exactly the same food to their own families every single day. Every single day. Before they give it to somebody else's children. Give that creamer to your wife, give that yogurt to your children, and then let's see who gets on fire, for God's sake.
This reminds me so much of like the tech revolution over the last decade.
You get me going, I'm sorry.
No, don't stop. But we only have 6 minutes left. But the tech revolution, where you'd have tech CEOs or tech founders, and they'd be like, yeah, my kids don't watch TV, they don't have a cell phone. Like, it's a similarity.
Yeah. But we can solve all these problems. We can solve it because you have people, passionate people, coming out of schools and going into these companies. I cannot say by shaming big companies we can solve the problem, but by influencing them, by going in and convince them, by seeing the data from the consumers and where the trend is going, like what we mentioned, and these things can be fixed. Yeah. And if the large company can change, if the business community can change to come to a point that we've just made, new problems in this world. I'm on the board of the Sustainable Development Goals. We are halfway through that with the Sustainable Development Goals, and we are nowhere. But I am optimistic because I see the signs. Like you're going to see, Gideon is going to come here to talk about refugees. What we've done with the corporate world, taking the examples from Chobani hiring refugees, and see how much impact that has in the refugees' world and the refugees' life, and how much impact that has in the company. And we took that idea and expanded into all the corporations. We have over 300 companies worldwide hiring hundreds of thousands of refugees. And that's just what convincing the CEOs and companies. If the CEOs and companies are convinced from the whole, holistically, from the workers, management, and the shareholders,
right.
And, all those financial shareholders, that this is the nice way, good way to operate, we solve all the problems in the world in a heartbeat. If
you weren't from Turkey and came to this country, would we be having this conversation about refugees? I'm just wondering. It's very personal, right? Like
I mean, my journey is, this country has been amazing for me. And I was just talking to New York City, people who are having migrants coming in. My tent is right there with the kiosk that giving them the work authorization. We're getting their information to connect to the companies that we have. And I never thought that the boy from eastern part of Turkey would go make a home in upstate New York and go into a old factory with 4 factory workers, and then 10 years later sitting with you and trying to tell the world how to run their business. I never thought this would happen. But that's the magic of this country, and this is what we can do in this country.
By hiring, because you've hired a ton of refugees.
Yes, ma'am. The best thing I've ever done in my life.
What are leaders?
It really is. These are the things that what the business is extremely powerful on. You can make dramatic changes on life and community, and you see it right there. and it's sustainable. You don't have to go back for money. You can actually do it right in front of you. And if you can make hundreds of thousands of people in your company power to make those changes in their individual, effort, it becomes like you go to home and you put your head in your bed. It's like, is this a job? Is this a work? This is the most beautiful thing you can do. And then you can go to, your shareholders and says, look at the results.
Oh, so that doesn't mean you are going public?
No. I mean, I'm talking about other businesses.
Just kidding. But what are leaders missing by not including refugees? Like, we talk so much about the importance of diversity in all its forms, but the importance of refugees as part of your work.
On that one, Carol, I have to tell you, I started this in 2016. I begged for 4 companies to put their name out there that they will be hiring refugees. Today I have over 300 companies. McDonald's just joined, Subway just joined, Nokia just joined, Pfizer, everybody else. We put our attention, I spend 1/3 of my time, sometimes half of my time on this.
Can I just say Amazon, H&M,
Amazon,
Adidas, Hilton,
Amazon,
L'Oreal, Pfizer.
Gideon is going to talk about
It's a who's who. I know Gideon's.
He's the CEO, he's the master. But we pay one attention to this topic, like hire refugees. We did economic studies, scientific studies, consumer studies, brand studies in each market. We call it market. And then one by one, we convinced these companies. And once they saw the result and they just got deeper and deeper and deeper, I have to say, if you pay attention and you go and convince from the perspective of business, we can solve this problem. We can make a dent in this problem. And today, I think hiring refugees from the company's perspective, that shift is already done. People are hiring it. People are talking about hiring it. All these companies that you can name up. So what else can we do? We can do all of those things because we are convinced that this is good for refugees, this is for community, this is what we are all about in this country, and it's magical what it does to companies. It's magical what it does to companies.
So what do you hope, in our last minute, that this group here, who's heard some great conversations when we think about sustainable businesses and all its configurations, what do you hope that they go home and think about or actually do?
I'm 50 now. My 20-year-old, my 18-year-old, very skeptical of business community and coming from the perspective of pushing out. And what I can tell from my perspective is we have so much to go, still a long way to go. Mm-hmm. But I see the signs. I'm very, very hopeful, and I'm not usually this optimistic on these things. I'm very hopeful that we're going to make this change on the world of on shortcoming, that the business community is going to lead it, is going to have to lead it. We cannot, there's no other ways.
Because governments are working so well?
Oh, forget about the politics side of things. And I think the gathering like this is so helpful that we can learn from each other, interact with each other, and inspire each other, and create a community for common goals. Because we have no other choices. We are running out of time on all dimensions. And if you know anything about human spirit, is when we commit to something, we can make this happen. And if it's going to happen, it's going to start here in this country. And if it's going to start in this country, it's going to start in New York. That's what I think.
I totally agree. Hamdi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.